Hi there, and welcome to Out There, a Cryptid podcast. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor, and today we are going to be taking a look at a mysterious app that became a viral sensation on TikTok in 2020. It welcomes users to explore the world you never knew existed, and has some questioning, can our intentions influence the world around us? This app is known as Randonautica. Let's dive in. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you all had a fun and safe holiday season. We here at Out There have been doing a lot behind the scenes, and y'all are finally starting to see some of that. With that being said, you can now support the show over on Patreon. For $5 a month, you get all of these episodes early and ad-free, along with behind-the-scenes looks, exclusive content, and much more. So, if you're interested in supporting us further, head over to Patreon and subscribe. And now, before we go any further, I want to add a disclaimer to this episode. When covering topics that have to do with apps, websites, or phone numbers, I ask that you err on the side of caution, and if you do decide to call these numbers or use these services yourself, do so at your own risk. This is not to say that anything nefarious will happen if you do use them, but it's always smart to be safe. And also, at some parts of this episode, I'll be talking about death and self-harm, so I wanted to make you guys aware of that, so in case you get uneasy about that stuff, you can skip parts of this episode. We'll get into everything about the Randonautica app right after this. The origins of Randonautica date back to January 2019, when a man by the name of Joshua Langfelder came up with the idea after discovering a bot called the Fatum Project on the popular chat app known as Telegram. This bot was created in an attempt to research unknown areas that exist in blind spots outside of the normal probability patterns. It does this by generating random coordinates and exploring these locations to increase the chances of finding new places and breaking out of typical patterns. The Fatum Project, and also Randonautica itself, are both very good real-world scientific test examples of what is known as chaos theory. This is an interdisciplinary area of scientific study and branch of mathematics that focuses on underlying patterns and deterministic laws of dynamical systems that are highly sensitive to initial conditions. And to put this in easier terms, it's essentially a system that can change over time. Examples of these dynamical systems can be anything from a swinging pendulum, animal population growth in an ecosystem, and even the weather. Basically anything where the state of the system evolves based on a set of rules and can be mathematically modeled to understand how it can and will change in the future. At its core, the idea is that the state of these systems are not static, but they are constantly evolving based on their current state and any external factors. These systems were once thought to have completely random states of disorder and irregularities, but according to chaos theory, it is stated that within the apparent randomness of chaotic complex systems, there are underlying patterns, interconnection, constant feedback loops, repetition, self-similarity, fractals, and self-organization. One well-known example of this would be the butterfly effect, which describes how a small change in one state of a deterministic nonlinear system can result in large differences in a later state, or simply put, small changes can result in unpredictable consequences over a period of time, even in deterministic systems where every event is theoretically predetermined by what happened previously. A well-known metaphor for this is that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil can cause a tornado in Texas. Langfelder used these basic theories and code from the Fathom Project bot, combined with his particular interest in the thought of how people can influence random outcomes with their minds, to build his own bot on Telegram that would use all of these prior inputs to generate the random coordinates. This bot is what would go on to become the Randonautica app. Later in the year, in March, Langfelder would create the r/Randonauts subreddit. This subreddit is a place where users of the app, also known as Randonauts, could go and talk about the app and share their experiences. This subreddit is still around and very active if you'd like to check it out for yourself. In October, developer Simon Nishi McCorkindale was brought in to help make the bot's webpage, and soon after, with the help of Auburn Salcido, a chief executive officer of a TV agency, Langfelder would create Randonauts LLC. Salcido was appointed as chief operating officer, and Langfelder was the CEO. The app we know today was then launched on February 22nd, 2020. According to what is stated on their website, Randonautica is the world's first quantumly generated choose-your-own-adventure reality game. Now, to really understand this claim a bit more, let's take a look at how the app itself works. Within the app, there are 3 different location types you can choose from, these being attractor, void, and anomaly. An attractor location type is an area where quantum points are highly concentrated, meaning there are more points in the given area. A void location is the opposite of an attractor location type, wherein the quantum points are more sparse. And while this may make it sound like it's a bad option, it's actually not. While there are less points in the area, if it is particularly void of these quantum points, it has a better chance of being relevant towards your intention, which in turn may yield better results. And the last location type is anomaly. These are also known as intention-driven anomalies, or also power in the app. And they seem to be fully driven by your intentions. When an anomaly is selected, the app uses quantum number dates to pick the strongest attractor or void anomaly available. Now, what exactly are quantum numbers? Let's break it down. Quantum numbers are quantities that characterize the possible states of a system. To fully specify the state of the electron in a hydrogen atom, for example, 4 quantum numbers would be needed. Traditionally, these numbers would be principal, azimuthal, magnetic, and spin quantum numbers. A principal quantum number describes the size of the orbital. An azimuthal number describes the orbital angular momentum and can also describe aspects of the angular shape of the orbital. A magnetic quantum number distinguishes the orbitals available within a given subshell of an atom. It also specifies the component of the orbital angular momentum that lies along a given axis, which is conventionally called the z-axis. So in short, it describes the orientation of the orbital in space. And finally, a spin quantum number describes the intrinsic angular momentum, or spin angular momentum, or simply spin, of an electron or other particle. Now, I know what you're probably wondering. How does this have any connection to what we're talking about here? And the answer to that is the Australian National University's Quantum Random Number Generator. A quantum random number generator, or QRNG, is a device that generates random numbers from a physical process capable of producing entropy. These random number generators are expected to output near-perfect random numbers, or full entropy, A physical process usually does not have this property, and a practical QRNG typically includes a few blocks. A noise source that implements the physical process producing the entropy. Usually, this process is analog, so a digitizer is used to convert the output of the analog source into a binary representation. A conditioner, randomness extractor, that improves the quality of the random bits, and health tests. TRNGs are mostly used in cryptographic algorithms that get completely broken if the random numbers have low entropy, so the testing functionality is usually included. QRNGs generally produce only a limited number of random bits per second. In order to increase the available output data rate, they are often used to generate the seed for a faster PRNG. The ANU QRNG was created to be a free online resource for anyone who had the need for such a machine, and Langfelder and his team decided to take advantage of this. To put it all together, the app asks the user to set an intention for their quest, or state what they'd like to see at their destination. It is shown that this seems to have an effect on the location of the coordinates given to the user. And with these two things coupled together, the user will get a completely random set of coordinates that are connected to their chosen intent. And again, I would like to point out that since these coordinates can be random, it is stated in the app's privacy policy that users should not trespass or endanger themselves. So, if you do decide to go out and test the app yourself, please be smart and also mindful of your surroundings. Soon after its launch, Randonautica would go viral on platforms like YouTube and TikTok, with people recording their adventures. One of the most notable encounters is that of TikTok user Ugg Henry. On June 19th, 2020, Henry and a group of friends decided they wanted to try the app. They downloaded it and set everything up. The group set their intention as travel. The app gave them coordinates that led to a beach in West Seattle. The group searched the area for a short time till they came across a small black suitcase in a patch of rocks near the water. They approached the suitcase and carefully opened it to reveal it was filled with trash bags and was also emitting a very foul odor that only grew the longer it was open. They backed away from the case and quickly called the police, who arrived on scene shortly after the call. As the authorities took a closer look at the suitcase they discovered, wrapped in the trash bags was the dismembered bodies of two individuals, one male and one female. These bodies were identified as 27-year-old Austin Wenner and 36-year-old Jessica Lewis. They both seemed to have died from an apparent gunshot wound. An investigation ensued, and in August, police arrested and charged the victim's landlord, 62-year-old Michael Lee Dudley, in connection with the murders. It is believed he shot them after an argument over unpaid rent. The following year, Dudley was denied bail while other people were under suspicion of aiding Dudley in the dismemberment and disposal of the bodies, but no one else had been charged. In 2022, Michael Lee Dudley was convicted of second-degree murder for killing both victims. He was sentenced to 46 years in prison the following year. After the incident, a spokesperson from Randonautica said, "Our first reaction was to reach out to the teenagers to make sure they were doing all right. We sent a message letting them know the intention of Randonautica is not to find something disturbing like this." More on this story right after this. This case has caused speculation that the app has an intended puzzle-like theme. However, Langfelder stated that it is a shocking coincidence, and also that when you're sending millions of people to random locations and searching the hidden corners of reality, you're bound to find some pretty shocking stuff sometimes. It's not the best press, but I'm not really that upset about it, because it's kind of cool. I kind of wish it was me who found it. Salcido went on to call the videos fake, and said that it's so hard to manage because people are really taking creative liberties after seeing how much traction the app is getting in that fear factor. Other incidents include Reddit user u/poweredbythewitches, where their intention was red. The app sent coordinates that led them to an open field next to a train track, where they found an abandoned red couch. Then, Reddit user u/spectratex, in which their intention was fridge, in which they were led to an empty field only containing a fridge. u/DennyHKE had the intention of love, and in this case, the user was sent to a cemetery where their younger brother was buried 2.5 years earlier. User Drake Berserker's intention was an ending, and the app led them to an empty grave in a cemetery. This next story is that of user u/illustriousad5059. Their intention word was spooky, and the app then led them to a very unassuming spot near the woods. And as they looked around, they found a long trail in the woods. While walking in the trail, they came upon a gravesite for a dog named Faith. They thought that was odd, but kept walking down the path. And about a half a mile further down the path, they found a folded piece of paper, which looked like an elegantly written note for someone addressing a friend. This note was also fairly unharmed, although it was left outside in the rain for over a month. OP would go on to search Facebook and try to find the man whose name is signed on the note. They found someone who posted on their wall, and they messaged her. It turns out she was the man's best friend. They kept messaging her and told her about the note, and she was fairly certain it was for her. She said he was depressed and committed suicide in June of that year. And the last story I've got for today is from TikTok user McKenna Ray. Their intention was death. This led her and a friend to a random street, and on this street, they came across someone laying in the gutter near the side of the road. This person was being cradled by a woman, who later turned out to be the man's wife. They got out of their car and went to help. The woman gave OP her phone and had them call 911. Both OP and her friend stayed on scene and talked to cops as soon as they arrived. There were reports from the local authorities' Twitter page that a shooting had happened in the area around the time OP and her friend were around. And this was further confirmed when a local newspaper reported on it. This encounter was not her first try with Randonautica, and she has tried multiple times before, all with different intentions, though she has stated all of those were uneventful. The thing most people have been asking about is Randonautica safe? And the short answer is yes, if used correctly, that is. As is the case with most things like this, if used correctly, you will have a fun and enjoyable time. In the privacy policy of the app, it asks that users stay safe and use their best judgments in certain situations, like accidentally trespassing. If you would like a list of ways to be a responsible randonaut, it is listed on the main page of the Randonautica website. So again, if you do decide to try this out for yourself, please be responsible and act with common sense. There are a lot of theories of what the purpose of the app is. The first being that the company is malicious and/or they're purposely leading people to these locations. They do this in connection with people who plant the locations for the users to find for unknown reasons. And this isn't really too out of the question, since it's really not hard to generate a code that will output more dangerous locations, such as high crime areas of a city, deeply wooded areas, large bodies of water, and etc. So it's highly possible that this is all just a front for, say, a serial killer, or someone who wants to harm someone else, and they use this app to send those people to specific places so that they can either be taken or whatever else they would do. Others are in the camp that believe that people's thoughts can actually influence the coordinates. One such advocate for this theory was Robert G. John. John was a physicist and the dean of engineering at Princeton University, where, in 1979, he created the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, or PAIR, to study psychokinesis and its effects on previously mentioned QRNG machines. They explored the ability of test subjects to use psychokinesis to influence the random output distribution of these devices to conform to their pre-recorded intentions to produce higher numbers, lower numbers, and nominal baselines. These experiments normally utilized a microelectronic REG, but experiments were also conducted with a giant wall-mounted pachinko-like machine. And if you're unaware, a pachinko machine is a Japanese gambling machine, which is kind of a mix between a slot machine and plinko. In 1986, associates of PAIR published data collected over the course of 7 years from a group of subjects attempting to influence random number generators across millions of trials. In all cases, the observed effects were very small, between 1 and about 0.1%. And although the statistical significance of the results at the p-value less than 0.05 level is not generally disputed, detractors point to the potential ethical violations and flaws in experimental procedures, as well as questioning the importance of the large sample studies that only marginally clear the p-value less than 0.05 significance threshold. The baseline for chance behavior used did not vary as statistically appropriate. 2 PAIR researchers attributed this baseline bind to the motivation of the operators to achieve a good baseline, and indicates that the random number generator used was not in fact random. It was also noted that a single test subject, presumed to be a member of the PAIR's staff, participated in 15% of PAIR's trials, and was responsible for half of the total observed effect. John claimed that this large amount of compiled findings suggested a direct causal relationship between a person's intention and what would otherwise be a random result. All of John's work was based primarily on the fact that psychokinesis was legitimate and it allowed these people to influence these events. But not everyone believed in psychokinesis, and there was a lot of criticism for his research. A man by the name of James Alcock reviewed John's findings and mentioned there were many issues with PAIR's experiments, such as poor control tests and even documentation that seemed to show the possibility of fraud, selection bias, and optional stopping. Alcock concluded that there was no reason to believe that the results were from paranormal origin. A psychologist by the name of C.E.M. Hansel evaluated John's early experiments into psychokinesis at the PAIR labs and wrote about how a satisfactory control series had not been used, that they had not been independently replicated, and that the reports lacked detail. Hansel noted that very little information is provided about the design of the experiment, the subjects, or the procedure adopted. Details are not given about the subjects, the time they were tested, or the precise conditions under which they were tested, meaning that there is no proof that these so-called control or baseline tests were actually control tests at all. Pear's results have been long criticized for their low reproducibility. In one instance, 2 German organizations failed to reproduce Pear's results, while Pear themselves also failed to reproduce their own results. A physicist from York University, Stan Jeffers, also tried to replicate these results but failed while also finding statistical flaws in Pear's previous findings. More on this story right after this. In 1984, at the request of the US Army, the United States National Academy of Sciences formed a scientific panel to assess the best evidence of psychokinesis. Part of its purpose was to investigate military applications of psychokinesis, for example, to remotely jam or disrupt enemy weaponry. The panel heard from a variety of military staff who believed in psychokinesis and made visits to the Pear Laboratory and 2 other laboratories that had claimed positive results from micropsychokinesis experiments. The panel criticized micropsychokinesis experiments for being open to deception by conjurers and said that virtually all micropsychokinesis experiments depart from good scientific practice in a variety of ways. In a report published in 1987, their conclusion was that there is no scientific evidence for the existence of psychokinesis. And then, of course, some believe the people posting these stories are just lying. And sure, I do see where these people are coming from. With a majority of the incidents, there really isn't any proof or any kind of evidence that these users are really telling the truth. And that really brings into question how legit a lot of these incidents actually are. And with the incidents that do have evidence, such as the one in Seattle, a lot of it can possibly be chalked up to just a major and unfortunate coincidence. Similar to Randonautica, an app that had an incident pattern like this was Pokemon Go. Back when Pokemon Go released, it took the world by storm, and this led to there being a lot of incidents. These came about from users not following the rules set by the game or just not being fully aware of their surroundings. A lot of notable incidents include users getting robbed while standing by Pokestops, accidentally falling off cliffs while distracted by the game, finding dead bodies in unexpected locations, and even being involved in car accidents due to their focus on the game while walking or driving. These incidents, and the ones that happened on Randonautica, really highlight the massive safety concerns that can arise from users venturing into unfamiliar areas while looking at their phones. All these coincidences and happenings with certain intention words really make me think about a certain phenomena that is known as a confirmation bias. A confirmation bias is a tendency that involves seeking information that confirms pre-existing beliefs and discarding any opposing viewpoints. This is similar to another phenomena that we have covered previously, which is known as a cognitive bias. When discussing glitches in the Matrix, we talked about the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. This is a phenomenon in which a person notices a specific concept, word, or product more frequently after recently becoming aware of it. This phenomena is usually caused by selective attention. This refers to the process of selecting and focusing on selective objects while ignoring distractions. This means that people have the unconscious cognitive ability to filter for what they're focusing on. And when the app asks for an intention word, this word is usually something that the user has on their mind or are currently interested in and really thinking about. So the brain is going to zone in on that, and when these users go out to these locations given to them, they're going to be scanning every inch of the area for something relating to their intent. In some situations, the things they find have happened to be some very eerie coincidences. And with this thought, I want to leave you with a quote from author Paul Auster. "The world is so unpredictable. Things happen suddenly, unexpectedly. We want to feel we are in control of our own existence. In some ways we are, in some ways we aren't. We are ruled by the forces of chance and coincidence." So, could all these incidents be the forces of coincidence controlling our lives and making it seem like our intentions can control the world around us? Or could there be a more nefarious reasoning behind the inner workings of the app known as Randonautica out there? Be sure to follow us on Instagram at OutThereCryptids for episode posts, updates, and more. Join our community on Discord, where we dive even deeper into the mysteries we explore here on the podcast. The link can be found in our Instagram. And if you're loving the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get exclusive perks like bonus episodes, early access, and even surprises. See you next week.